Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Thursday morning, the 4th of December. In this video, I'm going to respond to DT, the DT show, who responded to my video from yesterday. This is concerning the Summer Wells case. Summer Moon Utah Wells was 5 years old when she was last seen outside of her home in the Beech Creek community of Hawkins County, which nestles in between the towns of Kingsport and Rogersville, on June 15th, 2021. She was reported missing around 6:26, something like that, in the evening, and she has not been seen since. 4.5 years almost. The case has been revived again after being in the doldrums for a long time with the search of a property on Van Hill Road, 9.5 miles away from Summer's home on Ben Hill Road. We don't know if they found anything or what they found on that property, but it's generated a whole lot of content, and I've been making a lot of summer videos since then. So in this video though, I'm going to respond to DT. The whole live stream was like an hour and a half, so I'm just going to pick out the main points and respond to those, or else it would just get mega long. I hope I capture all the main points in this video. If I don't, I can always do a follow-up. It's regarding search dogs. It's regarding the footprints. If you've never heard of Summer's footprints being found before, I've got a whole bunch of videos about them. If you go to my channel homepage and type in footprints in the search bar, you're going to get a bunch of videos. And I would imagine that the majority of those would be about Summer. There might be some that pertain to Lily and Jack, because footprints were found in that case as well. Anyhow, I'm going to start about 8 minutes in. Let's go. Before we get into the video, can I just ask once again, if you're not yet subscribed, please do so. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. With your help, I can do it. Just click the subscribe button, that's all you need to do. It's completely free. And if you are subscribed, you can help me out by liking the video, hyping the video, if you see the hype button, although the hype thing is confusing me at the moment. Leave a comment and also share my videos. That will tell the YouTube algorithm that you're engaging with my content, and it'll push it all out to other viewers. Alright, dogs tracked Summer scent from the hill down to the road. That's where we're going to start.
I remember hearing about how the dogs tracked Summer from the house area down to the road, and then it stopped at the road. And we recently have started training our dog, and we went to a seminar, and I thought like an idiot, like, well, it's a road, it's concrete, the dog can't smell on concrete. Well, I found out that's not true. Dogs are trained on like several surfaces. They can even track through water. It's a myth that they can't track through water. So I'm like, now, if she had walked on the road, they would have been able to follow her, which means her trail stopped cold at the road.
Not quite. Yes, of course, dogs can track on concrete. They can track on a whole bunch of different surfaces, including, if they're trained to do so, in water. But there's a lot of caveats. And I've said this again and again and again and again. When a dog is trained to man-trail, to follow someone's scent, all you're doing is tapping into their natural instinct. Why are they good at tracking? Well, it's to find prey. So if they smell something on the wind that smells like food running around, they air scent until they get a direction, and they follow that direction. At some point, they're going to get their nose down and they're going to be hot on that trail. And that scent gets stronger and stronger the closer to the prey they get. Of course, it's obvious. But when a dog is man-trailing, when a dog is following someone's scent because it's trained to do so, it's been given a scent, and in this case, Summer Wells.
I do want to say I am not familiar with like scent dogs and things of that nature. Like, I have assisted and been involved in searches and stuff, and been involved in where, dogs are used, but I have no experience whatsoever in how they work or don't work. I did look up the information myself, and, my experience as far as that goes is as much as Google says. And Google says that A change of surface, going from a like to a softer pavement type or like a smoother surface like the pavement could have an effect on the scent. But that's a possibility. That doesn't mean that Ryan is wrong when he says that the trail stopped cold.
Well, no, Ryan isn't wrong. The trail did stop for the dog. So you've got to think about why. Now, of course, there's always that possibility that the trail stopped because Summer was put in a car and taken out of the area. There's always that possibility. However, in saying that, you've then got to explain the other scent alerts that were found on Fred Hill's property, which DT talks about in a bit, and also the footprints, which he also talks about in a bit. You've got to explain those. And if Summer was taken away in a car and then never brought back, how did those scent alerts and those footprints get there? And you might say, well, maybe Summer was wandering about the day before. Because remember, the scent alerts on Fred's driveway, I think, were found on June 16th. I think the first dogs got on scene on June 16th. I'm not sure that there was a dog on scene on June 15th because law enforcement started to arrive around 7 p.m. and there's going to be only like a couple of hours of daylight left, isn't there? I'm trying to think. June, what time does it go dark in Tennessee? Mid-June. Here, you're looking at, you still got sunlight at 10 p.m, but I'm not sure about in Tennessee. So you've only got 2 hours of decent daylight at the very most. Would they get the dog teams out? I do know, I absolutely know, that tracking Summer's scent from the top of the hill to Ben Hill Road, whether that was down the dog trail or down the driveway, that was June 16th. Don has said that, Jody Sue has said that, and also Fred has said that the dogs went to his property on June 16th. I'm sure he said that. I don't have the quotes, but June 16th is a strong contender. But the footprints were only found 4 days later. And it was after searchers had already been through the area. And then they did another pass and a dog alerted. And then they started searching really intensely and they didn't stop. They found another footprint on Mary Sexton's land and they didn't stop until they'd exhausted that area. This is the search that they did. Somebody on Beech Creek Road took this footage. And this is them out in the night. And this is what Dave Rader from EquiSearch said. And I respect Dave Rader's knowledge and experience and just the fact that he was actually there on the ground. So he got into town on the Sunday, which was the 20th of June. But on that Saturday, the 19th, that's when the footprints were found. And Dave Rader says he doesn't know the truth about that because he didn't see them himself. However, what he absolutely knows is the theory that law enforcement had after finding evidence that someone was out there. So listen to this. This is a 2.5 minutes. This is very enlightening. I got this from Police Off the Cuff, their podcast. I don't know whether they've got the same thing on their YouTube channel, but I took it off the podcast, so it's audio only. You've got Cassie and Tilly jumping around in their younger years. All right, 2.5 minutes. Let's go.
I can tell you the grid pattern that I seen from the incident command from inside and the mapping that they were doing and where they were sending us is that everything in and around that house for I would have to say probably a 2-mile radius around that house was saturated. So okay. I mean, then there was the thought that on that Saturday night that I got into town, which would have been 4 days prior after she went missing, is that somebody said that they found a footprint. Now, I don't know the truth about that, but they had TBI, FBI. They had some of the locals there late at night. I got into town about 11 o'clock, and they were still searching until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, from what I understand, because they went under the assumption is that, oh hell, maybe if she was abducted, they're seeing all of this go down. They dropped her back off near the woods, and that she was now walking the woods by herself. So then they set up this this good perimeter around there, and just kind of worked our way more towards the house to create that funnel effect.
Okay.
And again, we followed creeks. There wasn't a damn stone unturned. I can't imagine.
It sounds like the initial search was concentrated close to the home, I guess with the belief that either she had wandered off or she was somewhere close. That's basically what you're telling me. I mean, if we analyze what you just said.
Right. So basically what you do in a search scenario is that if the mother, in this case Candace, sits there and says, "Hey, my daughter walked away," you always go from the point last seen.
Sure.
And you just saturate the piss out of that area. And again, as the investigation goes on, that's when things start to turn, that you might have to shift your search strategy per se, to expanding that circle depending on the scenario and what the investigation points and leads to.
So, yeah, the theory was, amongst the search and law enforcement, it was that someone had abducted her. You know, obviously this is just a theory, but what if somebody had abducted her, seen all the furore going on, and dropped her back off in the woods, and she was wandering about in the woods on her own? That was their theory. But as Dave Rader said, they saturated the piss out of that area, and they didn't find her. But it is interesting. This is a screenshot of the flight path of one of the helicopters. Now, I looked on the metadata of this screenshot, and it's February 2022. So that was just the date that I saved it in the file that I stored it in. So the actual date of this search, I don't know whether this is from the November search or from the February search. There was a search in February. I think it was from the November search, but can you see? That's just one helicopter going round and round and round and round in the area where the footprints were found. That is absolutely not a coincidence. Anyhow, let's move us on, because I talk a little bit more and explain a little bit more, and then DT responds. What happens? The scent might still be there, but it's weaker. That confuses the dog, because in their brain, they're assuming that the scent is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. It doesn't matter how well trained they are. That's their natural instinct, to follow that trail in the direction of travel, because that scent is getting stronger. But once it hits the concrete road, that scent gets weaker, because the scent dissipates so much quicker on artificial surfaces like concrete. So although there might still be scent there lingering around, depending on how long ago the person passed by, it's going to confuse the dog, and they're going to...
I will say that I'm sure that it will be not as strong of a scent, but, you know, unless this is a rookie dog, I'm sure it's dealt with the change of surfaces. I'm sure that that's part of their training and things of that nature. This isn't something that is not known to the dog search community. All right.
You are tapping into a dog's natural instinct to search. The only thing you're doing is tweaking that dog's instinct to track a specific scent, a scent that you want them to track. Okay, so Cassie isn't a man trailer. Spaniels were bred to flush birds and rabbits and stuff out of undergrowth so they could be shot and then retrieve them. So when Cassie's finding hats and finding gloves, she's doing exactly what she was bred for. She's going out, she's finding a specific thing, and she's bringing it back. She air scents until she can find the direction, like her best guess of direction, and then she's hot on the trail and she's off. She goes and finds the article. That said, like, she does track other stuff. How far she tracks something, I've no idea, but I haven't trained her to do this. So let's say, for example, she gets the scent of a cat. She will literally follow the footsteps that the cat took. And then she gets hella confused when the cat might have jumped onto a wall. I've never been able to film this. It's hilarious. Like, there was one time Cassie and Noodle saw a cat. They actually physically got eyes on the cat. The cat went round a corner and jumped on a wall, like a high wall, and basically watched the two fools, run round the corner, get completely, totally confused that this scent had just stopped. The cat was physically there, but because they were so focused on the scent trail, and the scent trail just stopped, it didn't stop, it changed. The cat was on a wall, maybe 7-foot high wall. And the cat was literally sat on the wall watching them, laughing. I'm sure that cat was laughing. And they were running around in circles. It was the funniest thing. They didn't work out that the cat was still there. And I'm sure they could still smell the cat, but the scent trail had stopped. I've seen Cassie track along grass and then get to a road and completely stops. Now, the cat's walked across the road and she stops. She's confused. That's a dog's natural instinct. Training, yeah. You can train a dog to keep searching. You can encourage the dog to keep searching, but we can't talk dog and they can't talk to us. Like 90% of training is getting your dog to understand what you want them to do because you can't speak dog. And if they're confused, they can't speak to us either. So there's a language barrier with any form of training. Once a dog gets what you want them to do, if they're book smart, like Ella, they'll do it. If they're street smart, like Cassie, they'll decide whether they want to do it or not. Anyhow, training's great. But the way that a handler would deal with a dog stopping, yes, they might be aware that the surface had changed. Sheriff Ronnie Lawson is aware that that might be why the dog's lost the scent. But what you do as a handler is you give the dog a break and then restart the dog in that area where the dog stopped, just to check it genuinely is a scent trail that stopped, or it's a trail that just got weaker. And if you restart the dog on that weak scent, then it might be able to pick up the track, if that makes sense. This is a good example. Now, we don't have audio. This isn't the Sebastian Rogers case. I did a video about this last week. This footage is from a camera at the top of Kelling, overlooking the backyards, the houses at the top of Kelling Lane. And this bloodhound has tracked Sebastian's scent across Kelling Lane and into the backyards at the top of Kelling. And the dog just stops and then gets called back. Now, because there's no audio to this, we don't know whether the dog stopped because the trail stopped or because the handler stopped the dog, like gave the command to stop and then called the dog back. We don't know whether that was handler-induced or dog-induced. But let's just imagine that that's dog-induced and the trail just stops in the middle of the grass. What, Sebastian's beamed up? No, likely Sebastian doubled back on himself. If that trail genuinely did stop, Sebastian doubled back on himself. Because no amount of training can tell a dog if a scent trail stops, they might have turned around and gone back the way they came. So it's always possible that Summer Wells walked down the driveway or the dog trail and then walked straight back up again and no one abducted her. There's always that possibility. There's always a possibility that that scent trail wasn't laid on June 15th. Because on a natural surface like mud, grass, to a lesser extent gravel, depending on the weather conditions and etc., that scent trail can last several days. Especially under cover, like a woody area like the dog trail is. That scent trail could last several days. So Summer might have run down the dog trail, like, I don't know, following her brothers, on June 13th or June 12th. And the trail that dog followed on June 16th is nothing to do with Summer Wells' disappearance. Think on that. I know we've discussed that previously on this channel. It's been discussed many times. But if you discount entirely the trail going from the hill to the road, you've still got to explain the scent alerts on Fred Hill's property and the footprints. You've still got to explain those. Because what would Summer be doing, whether it was June 15th, June 12th, what would she be doing on Fred Hill's driveway? And what would she be doing to leave footprints high up on a ridge? Because on Mary Sexton's land, I've done videos about this, on Mary Sexton's land, that where the footprint was found was high up on a ridge, like behind Mary Sexton's house. And the house is like set back from the road and kind of high up. The footprint was behind that. So what would someone be doing there if she hadn't been taken there by someone? So you've got to explain this. And remember, the footprints were only found on the 19th. So they're already 4 days old if those footprints were laid down on June 15th. Now, if they were laid down before that, like June 13th, June 14th, you've got to explain why Summer was there. Why would she climb up a ridge that's away from her home, and then like half a mile down the road, there's another footprint? What would she be doing? The only explanation I can come with is that someone took her there. But did they take her there on June 15th? Now, I'm going to move us on a little bit to Fred Hill. This is where Ziggy is with Fred Hill on his driveway.
And so the cadaver dogs were out there. Cadaver dogs aren't going to pick up a scent from the roadway of somebody that walked, months earlier. That's just impossible for that to have occurred.
Well, a live scent tracker isn't going to pick up scent from somebody who walked there months earlier. On a surface like that, gravel, where, yes, you do have natural surface, like you've got stones laid onto a natural surface, you're going to have maybe 3 or 4 days, maybe a bit longer. It depends on the dog. It depends on what the weather's been like. Depends on how windy it is. Depends how long the person spent there as well. There's a whole bunch of factors on that, but months ago, no. Now, the thing is, Fred Hill in this interview said cadaver dogs, and he has since corrected himself and said he thought cadaver dogs were tracker dogs. He didn't know the difference between a live scent tracker and a cadaver dog. For those in the know, obviously, a tracker dog, a live scent tracker, a live scent trailing dog is tracking a live person, like a living human being. A cadaver dog is searching out the scent of human remains. Fred just got it wrong, and Ziggy and Fred have clarified this several times. I've never saved the clips where they've said it, and I should do. Next time they talk about it, I'll save the clip. So, no, cadaver dogs didn't hit on Fred's driveway. It was one of the live scent tracker dogs. So that can be excluded completely. Fred just got it wrong. I mean, you might not believe Fred at all, but why would Fred say that the dog alerted on his driveway? Because it makes him like the suspect. Why would he say it if it didn't happen? I mean, Fred said a lot of stuff, but why would he say that if it didn't happen?
We're looking at a 1/4 mile away. That's not very far from her house. And for somebody that ran around and barefooted through up and down those, the wooded area, is there any way of telling that those footprints were in fact, from that day?
It's a good point. But remember, you're 4 days in, you've already got a 4-day lag between June 15th and June 19th when these footprints were found. And yeah, Summer could have been running all around here. But why would Summer go up high up on a ridge? The footprints that were found in Mary Sexton's land are high up on a ridge. You can tell that by the elevation change. You can go to Mary Sexton's house and you can look at how quickly the elevation rises. You can do this on Google Earth. I've got videos on this. I mean, look, do you want me to do a live stream where I go through all this again? Would that be something that would be useful for like newer viewers? People who've been on my channel a long time and been following the Summer Wells case on my channel for a long time, you'll have seen me talk about this again and again and again and again. But for newer viewers or people who need a recap, do you want me to do a live stream and go through the whole thing? I'm happy to do it. I just don't want to bore people. But all that information is there on my channel if you want to go and hunt it out. So, yeah, you've got to explain why Summer was out there climbing up ridges. Her parents say she never left the hill. Well, other people have said that they've seen Summer on the roadway. Like Don Sherfy Sr. said that he'd seen Summer with her brothers careering about on the roadway. Like, he's had to stop for them. Like people have said, so Jose, when Jose was interviewed by Clutch Them Pearls, he said that, Summer would wander off We know Summer wandered. Like, regardless of what Don and Candy said, we know Summer wandered. But would she wander? It's not the distance. It's not the distance at all. It's the height. Why would she climb up on a ridge?
From the day before, from the week before, they could have easily been from that day. I don't discredit them at all. I just think that when we look at the footprints, we also have to take everything into consideration, including the recent search about 9.5 miles away. And, you know, how does that search, which it sounds like, and I mean, I know there's no confirmation here, but it sounds like a lot of dirt was removed from the property. Those type of scenarios usually typically mean a remains type of search.
It does. It absolutely does. Now, I think I've missed it. It's somewhere in here. But DT says it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for somebody, you know, whether it's known to the parents or not, to walk Summer through the woods. Why wouldn't you just throw her in a car and be gone? Well, yeah, at the face value, it doesn't make sense. But you've still got to explain these scent alerts. And you've got to be able to explain it before you can move forward. Think about it this way. It might not make sense to us, but what if this was planned? What if this was a planned removal and they didn't want to get caught on any cameras? So we know that, or we've heard at least, that Blue Roof Don at the corner of Ben Hill and Beech Creek Road had cameras. So maybe they knew and didn't want to get caught on cameras. And there's only that way out of Ben Hill via vehicle. You can't go via Simpson Road and get out. Ben Hill is a dead end for cars. So there's only one way out in a vehicle. Yeah, they could stick her in the trunk, but again, your vehicle would be caught on the camera and maybe they would know that. So walking her out would confuse anybody because it looks like she's never left, because they can account for every vehicle that passed by. And was it true that it had roadblocks up? Think about this. This is another scenario. What if those footprints didn't happen on June 15th, they happened on June 16th or 17th or 18th? What if Summer had been held, and this is horrible to think about, what if Summer had been held somewhere in the Ben Hill Road area for 2-3 days and then walked away? And if they had roadblocks up, people all over the place, walking her out, very, very risky. So I'm not saying it's likely to have happened, but it's another scenario. Walking her out via trails that they know there's no searches at. I don't know. I think that's very brazen, very unlikely. But you've got to explain them. And you can explain the distance. Yeah, you can explain the distance. But what you can't do is explain the height. Why would a 5-year-old climb up high on a ridge and leave footprints there? You can't cherry pick the bits that you can explain and then just ignore the bits you can't. I mean, look, I knew about the footprints from almost day one, and I ignored them for months. Didn't talk about them on my channel for months. Why? Because I couldn't explain them. And it was only after I'd done the Truth in the Hills series for long-term members. I did Truth in the Hills series, and I think that was like November 2021, and I went through everything again. And I started to think, what if? And then I found that clip by Dave Rader that I'd missed. And it all clicked into place that maybe Summer was walked away for whatever reason. Whether that was June 15th and she was gone before searchers even got there. Or whether they were absolutely brazen and walked her out under the noses of the searchers. I don't think it's likely, but who knows. But if those footprints and those scent alerts on Fred's driveway were laid before Summer went missing, you've got to explain what she was doing out there. Yeah, interesting. So thanks, DT, for reviewing my stuff. It's a conversation, isn't it? If Summer's remains ended up 9.5 miles away on Paul Hill's property, did someone kidnap her, abuse her, and then kill her, and then just dump her there on Paul Hill's property? It's horrible. Horrible. It's a case, I think, possibly, hopefully, one day will be solved. If you want me to do a live stream on all of this, go through it all, let me know. I don't want to bore people too much because the information is there on my channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget, Cold Case Christmas, episode 4 tonight. What will the case be? Here's a trailer.